there, I'm a nerd named Ryan, and on today's video we return to the world of classic Doctor Who. Specifically today we are looking at one of the most infamous episodes in Doctor Who's history. That's right, we are looking at Timelash. So yes, Timelash, the penultimate story from season 22, Colin Baker's first full season. This was broadcast in two parts between the 9th and 16th of March 1985, two 45-minute episodes, written by Glenn McCoy, produced by John Nathan Turner, and directed by Pennant Roberts. Eric Sayward was the script editor at this point. The TARDIS gets caught in the Timelash, a powerful time corridor that brings the Doctor and Peri to the troubled planet of Karfel. The planet is on the brink of war and ruled by an insane and much-feared dictator who punishes Karfelons by throwing them into the Timelash. But why is their leader never seen in person, and what links Karfel with 19th century Scotland? The Doctor arrives just in time to find out. Okay, so Timelash is a fairly infamous episode amongst Doctor Who fans. This is often cited as one of the worst. You know, whenever you look up worst Doctor Who stories or worst classic Doctor Who stories, this is usually down at the bottom alongside things like The Twin Dilemma and Time and the Rani. And honestly, I don't think it deserves all the hate it gets. It's not a masterpiece. Let me be clear here. This is by no means a masterpiece. I'm not saying it's one of Doctor Who's best episodes. It's probably the weakest serial of season 22, but I really love season 22. I think that's more that's more a compliment on the strength of the other episodes rather than an insult to this one. Because ultimately, I do think Timelash is kind of fun. I really get a kick out of Timelash, so let's talk about it. So first off, let's do some of the negatives, because I do think that there are negatives that I need to address before I talk about why I like this story. For me, my biggest issue, I think, with Timelash is the script. So this was written by Glenn McCoy, and I think it's actually only like his third script. He was still relatively new to screenwriting. Originally, he wrote this, by the way, as a Dalek story, but script editor Eric Sayward was like, get rid of the Daleks. And just, you know, we'll look at the main ideas, fine, but just get rid of the Daleks for this. I think the Timelash as a concept would have been really good for a Dalek story, but this is what we got anyway. Yeah, and my main kind of issue with it is, I think his inexperience kind of shows in some parts of this. Timelash is a story that has a lot of really interesting ideas. You know, the Doctor meets H.G. Wells. That's a really interesting idea. The Timelash as a concept in of itself is a really interesting idea. Again, the Borad as a creature is a really interesting idea. The true motivation of the Borad and why he wants this war to happen. That's all interesting. So it's got a lot of really interesting ideas and a lot of really interesting story points. But I think sometimes the script struggles to connect all of those ideas and story points together. And so there are parts of it that feel kind of rushed, and there are parts of it that feel like they're padding for time. A lot of the bits in the TARDIS are really kind of padding for time. Not only the bits with the Doctor and Peri, but also with the Doctor and Herbert. As much as I like David Chandler and Colin Baker together, I do think that there's I do think that those bits in the TARDIS are kind of padding for time. So, yeah, my main kind of problem would be kind of the script and the pacing of the story, really. And I guess my other kind of criticism I would have against this is Peri. They don't really give Peri much to do in this story. I actually quite like Peri as a companion overall. I think Nicola Bryant and Colin Baker, I understand why they're quite a polarising TARDIS team. I've always kind of liked them. And I think in some of the better episodes of season 22, they're really good. You know, in Revelation of the Daleks and Vengeance on Varos, and even something like The Two Doctors, I think they're an Attack of the Cybermen. I think they're really good in those stories. But in this one, I think the story does suffer by the lack of stuff they give Peri to do. I mean, Nicola Bryant has said in the making of documentary for this that this is some of her least favourite acting she's ever done in her career, some of the worst acting she's done in her career. And I don't know if I'd agree with that, but it's kind of difficult because they don't really give Peri anything to do. She's more of a plot point in this story than an actual character or an actual companion, and that's a real shame. And I do think the ending goes on a bit. It kind of, the Doctor defeats the Borad, and then, the Bandrels fire a missile, and the Doctor has to stop the missile, and then the Borad comes back. You don't really need all of that. I do think the change in format from 25-minute episodes to 45-minute episodes really didn't... I think that did kind of hurt this one a little bit, especially pacing-wise and ending-wise. I feel like this would have been better as kind of a 3-part 25-minute... as 3 25-minute parts. I think that would have been an ideal kind of length for a story like this. All that being said, there's a lot to like in Timelash. Again, the ideas, while I don't think they're always executed brilliantly, a lot of the ideas are pretty interesting. The Doctor meets H.G. Wells is an interesting idea. They don't really do it in a way that I think they should have done it. They kind of make Herbert look like a bit of an idiot, but, the actual concept, the actual idea is quite good. The Timelash itself is an interesting idea. Again, the Borad and the whole war and the way the political system of Carthel works is really fun. The idea that the Doctor's been here before in a story that we never saw, in a story that we've never seen, but like they make reference to, that's a really interesting idea. It kind of really helps flesh out the world of Doctor Who. This idea of, no, you don't see every adventure. The Doctor has been to this planet before, and the planet has changed a lot since he was last here. That's a really interesting idea. So I admire the ambition of the ideas in the story, even if they can't always, pull it off. It's worth noting that Timelash is the story of season 22 where they didn't have as much budget and they didn't have as much time. So this is the one that looks, very cheap. There's always one story in every classic Doctor Who era, in every classic Doctor Who season, that looks kind of cheap. And yeah, this is that. If you do have the season 22 Blu-ray set, you can watch it with updated special effects. But I kind of like the bad special effects. I like that the Timelash just looks like it's full of, tinsel off a Christmas tree. It's all very just sparkly. It's just glitter and tinsel. I kind of like that. I think the lame effects kind of adds to the charm of this. It's an ambitious story, but it doesn't always have the resources to pull off its ambition. But I admire it for trying. Again, I like the bad special effects. The updated ones are fine, but I kind of like the cheesy ones. I think they add to it. And not all of the special effects are bad. I will say this: the Borad is really, really good. I think it's a really excellent design. I think the makeup holds up pretty well. The actual character of the Borad is great as well. Robert Ashby is great as the Borad. I think the backstory of that character and the characterization's really good, and it works really well with the makeup and the design of the Borad. He's really, really fun. He's really cool as a villain. And speaking of fun villains, Paul Darrow. Oh my god, I love Paul Darrow in this. He is just hamming it up, isn't he? He's so good as Tekka, Malin Tekka. His voice is so good for this kind of character, this kind of smarmy, smug, kind of politician villain, because that's what he basically is. It is really Paul Darrow kind of getting his own back, because of course a few years prior to this, Colin Baker was on Blake 7 and he kind of overacted and was very over the top and very kind of wacky. And I think this is Paul Darrow going, yeah, I can do that as well. Watch me, I'm going to come on your show and be over the top now. But honestly, I think it makes him, he's one of the most entertaining parts. Like, I really can't hate Tekka. He's the kind of character I wish that you really are supposed to hate. But I kind of can't, because he's just so fun. And Paul Darrow plays him in such a fun way. And I think him and Robert Ashby as the Borad are really good villains in a very kind of contrasting way. Robert Ashby plays the Borad as very kind of subtle. He plays that role completely straight. And I think that's a nice kind of contrast to Paul Darrow, who's just, being this utter pantomime villain. I think he's just really good. So that's another thing I really like in this story, is I just kind of like how fun it is. I like how wacky and ridiculous it is. It's a lovely slice of Doctor Who nonsense. And Doctor Who is one of those shows where I think even when it's bad, it can still be really enjoyable and really fun to watch. Timelash is absolutely that. It's such a blast. It's such a laugh. Colin Baker is great in this. I mean, Colin Baker's just a really solid Doctor anyway. Again, I like him and Nicola Bryant as the Doctor and Perry. I think they're always really, really fun, even when they don't really give Perry much to do. Herbert, I don't really like the characterization of H.G. Wells in this, but David Chandler playing Herbert is really fun, and I like the back and forth that he and Colin Baker have. I think they're a really good kind of comedic duo. I kind of wish it wasn't H.G. Wells. I kind of wish it was just some random guy called Herbert, because they kind of make him a bit of an idiot, you know, which I don't really think is necessary. And I think there is a lot more you could have done with the idea of, you know, the Doctor meets H.G. Wells. But again, all of those problems I have with it aside, it's a really fun story. It's kind of disjointed and kind of all over the place, a bit like this review. But I don't care, because it's just such a blast. It's such fun to watch. Again, the Borad is a great, underrated villain. I actually kind of want them to bring back a character like the Borad. I feel like the Borad's a character that could really work in kind of a modern Doctor Who context. The Borad's kind of there's some really dark themes as well, especially with the Borad and his plans that he has for Perry. Wow, yeah, season 22 gets dark. Even in its most wacky and strange and campy episode, it still gets pretty dark in some places. Another thing I really like, I love the design of the Borad's lair. I think that's a really cool. It's really cool kind of set design. It's just, you know, the colour scheme of it's really nice. The lighting scheme, it looks kind of ominous, and I like that they don't show the Borad straight away. They kind of put like an Alfred Hitchcock or a suspense kind of thing where you keep the monster hidden for a long, long time, and then when you actually reveal him, you're like, oh, that's actually a pretty cool design. Yeah, so I like that as well. I really enjoyed this episode a lot. I understand the criticisms levelled at it, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it does. I don't think it necessarily deserves all of the criticism that it gets. Timelash, I don't think it's that bad, but what do you think of it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you when I see you.